there tonight with crowds of people flooding the streets of Yemen. Look at this. You're about to see it. Furious about those U.S.-led strikes against Houthi rebels. President Biden late today saying there could be more to come. So what exactly would that even look like? We're breaking it down in just a second. Plus, dangerous, even potentially deadly cold is getting set to sweep the country. And I do mean the whole country. Every state today at some point under some kind of weather alert, where it's worst and where it's going to get worse coming up. Plus, new calls for the removal of a university president after a school vice president died by suicide. What her mother is telling NBC News exclusively about the last days of her daughter's life. Then the presidential election the world is watching tonight. Not our election, but Taiwan's. We're going to take you there live for a look at the ripple effect on China and the rest of the planet, too. And the new NFL play that a lot of its fans kind of hate. Why the league's making history by putting a playoff game only on streaming for the first time ever. And the viewer's guide for you later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we're starting with that new fallout tonight on those dramatic military strikes against the Houthis in Yemen, with President Biden late this afternoon saying he's willing to label them a terrorist group. Here he is talking about what comes next.
We will make sure that we respond to the Houthis if they continue this outrageous behavior, along with our allies.
That's after the Houthi rebels warned that these strikes, in their words, will not pass without a punishment. And as that wider war that so many had feared in the Middle East could be creeping closer. Look at this today. The big crowds of people in the streets of the capital of Yemen, which is controlled by the Houthis. Just some of the aftermath of those joint strikes that involved more than 60 targets in 16 locations. You can see some of those locations here. The Houthis say at least 5 people died, 6 people were hurt. And while the timing of the strikes themselves were ostensibly a surprise, it was a well-telegraphed one after weeks of warnings from the U.S. and the U.K. for the Houthis to stop attacking commercial ships in the Red Sea. We're talking about more than 24 attacks in more than 50 countries that all started after the war between Israel and Hamas began, according to the rebels, their way of protesting the killing in Gaza. So the fallout tonight in 3 big areas, 3 buckets, if you will. First, geopolitically. The Houthis, remember, are backed by the Iranians, so that's a concern for those watching this unfold. Secondly, there's the domestic piece of it, with anger from some in Congress on how these strikes went down. And then third, there's the economic picture, too. The Red Sea is so important to the global supply chain. And because of these attacks, some companies are taking longer routes to get their big ships where they have to go to avoid getting near the Houthis, which means those companies are spending more money, which could mean higher prices for the stuff that you buy. Courtney Kuby has been following this for just about 24 hours now, Courtney, as we covered this as breaking news on our show last night. There's now this concern about potential retaliation from the Houthis. You heard President Biden late today deliver that warning. What is the U.S. getting ready for? What does any potential escalation actually look like?
So, and Hallie, we've already seen the first signs of retaliation today. The Houthi rebels launched off 1 ballistic missile into the southern Red Sea. It didn't hit anything. It didn't have to be shot down. But Pentagon officials here saying it was clearly an act of retaliation for these massive strikes that the U.S. and the British military carried out overnight in Yemen. So the question now, though, they struck more than 60 targets at more than 24 locations, more than 150 precision-guided bombs and missiles fired off at these targets throughout the Houthi-controlled part of Yemen last night. So the question is, how much of their capability was degraded with these strikes last night? Will they be able to keep carrying out, as you've just been describing here, these continued attacks and threats against commercial shipping in the Red Sea and throughout that entire region? And the reality is, we just don't know. They fired off just 1 missile here. I will say, recently, they have shown more of a propensity towards firing volleys of strikes, so missiles and drones at the same time. We didn't see that yet today. But I must point out, officials we've been speaking to all day about these strikes concede that if the Houthis continue with these strikes, we will likely see more military action like we saw last night, Hallie.
You know, it's such an important point here that you're talking about, Cork, so I was going to ask you, right, can we read anything from this single launch that we saw from the Houthis today about what their capabilities now are? It sounds like the answer is mostly a no, right?
Right. At this point, we still don't know. I mean, I think it could be days before we really see that, or maybe if we'll see some sort of a U.S. military assessment or defense intelligence assessment of what maybe they actually hit and how much of their capability was degraded. But I really need to impress the fact that they fired 150 missiles and bombs here. Now, some of them would have gone after smaller things like a generator, potentially. But if they hit ballistic missile launchers, multiple launchers throughout the Houthi-controlled area of Yemen, they may have really degraded some of their capability. The Houthis may need to take a step back here, look at what was hit, what they still have, and see what capabilities they really have to keep moving forward with these continued attacks, Hallie.
We also have this sort of domestic political impact here, too, because there's now some criticism coming from some various corners against the Biden administration that they did this with no congressional oversight, with some lawmakers saying that these strikes are unconstitutional. How much is the Pentagon at play in some of the response here, as you can see some of these statements here on screen?
Yes, some members of Congress specifically calling for a war powers resolution for President Biden to go to Congress to notify about this sort of action. The reality, Hallie, he doesn't have to. The president doesn't have to do that. I mean, they've been telegraphing these actions for some time. One of the ways that the U.S. can, the Biden administration, frankly, the U.S. military, can always carry out these sorts of strikes is by calling them self-defense in nature. And we actually heard that about some of the targets and the strikes that they took out, they carried out last night, that they saw them as self-defensive in nature. The U.S. military always has the right of self-defense. But I wouldn't be surprised, candidly, if we do see a war powers resolution going forward here. But the Biden administration was fully within its rights to carry out and order these strikes last night, Hallie.
Courtney Kuby reporting, I know, up to the minute, as always, there at the Pentagon. Thank you very much. We'll check back in with you as we get more news on this. Let's take you out of the dangerous cold sweeping the country, with every single state at some point today under some kind of a weather alert for some kind of bad weather. We're talking wind or flooding or blizzards. Look at the whiteout, basically, that you're seeing here in Montana. This is obviously a huge hazard, no matter where you go. In Nebraska here, with very little visibility in some spots. And then down south, they're dealing with a ton of wind, some hail, the potential for tornadoes. You can imagine the travel nightmare. Take a look at this. These are planes getting de-iced, as if you could tell from the sort of white cloud that is covering all of them. You've got multiple airports putting in place ground stops. Overall, 5,300 delays, 2,000 cancellations. And listen, yes, it's winter, it's cold, it snows. We know, but this is a storm system that could break records. In Iowa, it could be the coldest caucus night ever on record on Monday. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. In Kansas City tomorrow, that Chiefs-Dolphins game could be one of the coldest NFL playoff games in history. Meteorologist Bill Cairns is standing by with more on that. But let's start with Adrian Broaddus, who's live for us in Chicago. Again, Chicago, a place that is used to the cold, but this is some of the coldest weather they've seen all season. Talk us through what the expectations are and what's happening on the ground.
Well, Hallie, you talk about breaking records. By Monday, Chicago could see up to a foot of snow. That's more snow than what we saw last year. People here are preparing. They have been dressing in layers if they had to be out today. They've got their gloves on. And they also have these, not only homeowners, but business owners. We've seen them out shoveling. But they've traded the shovels for now because we've got a break from the snow. If you look behind me, it's easy to notice it's raining. We just saw a gentleman walk by with an umbrella. At one point across the Midwest, about 1 to 2 inches of snow per hour fell. Earlier today, there was a ground stop at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. The FAA says that was because of snow and ice. But it's not just the snow that people are worried about. Listen in.
We are not scared of the snow, but we are scared of the ice that forms on the road. So we are scared that we might slip and fall.
The real cold, it's not good to be out in it for a long time. I worry about people who have to be stuck out in it because they don't have anywhere to go.
And that cold is dangerous when you factor in the wind. And again, we're expected here in Chicago to get wind gusts up to 45 miles per hour. It feels a whole lot colder than what it actually is. And if you're exposed to that type of temperature for 5 to 10 minutes, you're setting yourself up for frostbite. The governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, is also concerned, sending a letter pleading with Texas's governor, Greg Abbott, to stop sending migrants to this city because of the dangerous cold, saying to him, can you please help me save lives by not sending migrants here? Hallie?
Adrian, thank you very much. I want to get to meteorologist Bill Cairns now. And Bill, it is getting to be not just cold, but historically cold.
And Hallie, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, like the first time before you get a snowstorm each winter, it's kind of a big deal because you kind of get a little anxiety. You haven't seen snow in like 9 months. And it's the same with this cold. We haven't had a big cold freeze, Arctic outbreak plunge throughout the country. And that's what's about to happen. First, we have to get done with this snowstorm and rainstorm in some areas, but it is quickly freezing on the backside of it. Like St. Louis, for example, 50 degrees and rain this morning. Now it is 30 degrees and everything that was water is turning to an ice skating rink. So that's kind of the scene. Iowa's by far the worst. We have highways shut down statewide. Blizzard warnings continue there. Blizzard warnings have actually been extended. It's not even snowing anymore. It's like a ground blizzard. It's so windy in South Dakota and Nebraska that the snow is just being picked up and just blown all over the place. Additional snow, nothing crazy. We're going to see possible areas in Michigan 6 to 12 inches. In Chicago, you may only get another inch or two. That'll be about it on the lower end of all your projections. But it's the cold behind us. So here's the wind. Storms right over the top of Chicago. That's why the winds are light there. But we're at 41 miles per hour in St. Louis and 45 in Columbia, Missouri, as that cold air circles in. We also still have to get through this heavy rain in the I-95 corridor tonight. Again, it's not going to be like the last storm, 1 to 2 inches of rain. There'll be minor flooding problems, unlike the last time. But Hallie, here's the headline. Sioux City is down to -22 in Iowa. We're at -43 in Great Falls. This is the wind chill temperature on your skin if you stepped outside. We're at 7 in Wichita. And the forecast, it just keeps going south. By the time we get to Sunday, 3 in Dallas. Monday is -1. ERCOT, the energy supplier in Texas, just came out with their predictions, and they're now saying that on Tuesday will be the all-time record energy consumption in the state of Texas. It'll be very close to what they maximally can produce. So if it gets colder than expected, and if it's cloudy, and we don't have any use of the solar, people are going to worry about rolling blackouts in a situation like we had a couple years ago. So that'll be a story to watch as we head into next week. Hopefully the projection's worse than what will happen, but I know a lot of people in Texas are nervous about it.
Yeah, no kidding, Bill Cairns. It's going to be a busy weekend for you and for so many others. Thank you very much. And because of what Bill just laid out, you are seeing a freeze in campaigning in Iowa, quite literally, with a bunch of Republicans canceling stops because of just how bad that snow and that wind that Bill talked about is getting. But don't worry, it gets worse with a high. A high on Monday night for the caucus. The high forecast at 0 degrees, wind chill 42 below. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard is braving all of it from Des Moines. So let's start with the run-up to Monday here, because you are blessedly indoors, friend. I was bracing to see where your live shot was going to be. I'm glad you're inside because, the candidates, some of them have moved inside. Nikki Haley has gone virtual for some of her events. Typically, this is a time, Vaughn, and you know this well, 72 hours out from caucus night where everybody's blitzing, right? Everybody's getting out there trying to get people to turn out on caucus night. This blizzard situation has really put a pause on that.
Right. I think we convinced the bosses that, 0 degrees is kind of high stakes. And I think that the candidates were convinced by their campaign staffs that, look, probably not many folks are going to actually show up for a campaign event. And this morning, Ron DeSantis was the sole candidate that actually did keep a campaign event on the books. And only about 50 to 60 people were there. The rest of his events, though, through the day were canceled. Nikki Haley, she canceled all of her events. Carrie Lake was going to be here, the Arizonan, on behalf of Donald Trump for an evening event just about an hour outside of Des Moines and Pella. That event canceled as well. I just went and checked the windows outside. The blizzard is coming down as we speak. Come sunrise tomorrow morning, it is only going to be more intense cold here. I want to let you listen, though, from Ron DeSantis talk about the stakes of the weather.
I don't think you'll ever be able to cast a vote that has more impact given the circumstances. We don't know what the turnout's going to be. It could be much smaller than what it's been in the 16 cycle. That's possible.
And this is sort of the dynamic of it here, Hallie, is that the polls have been pretty consistent over time. But when you throw in -45-degree wind chills, well, how does that change a ball game? Well, we've never lived through that ball game before.
Well, that's the thing. It is a question mark, and it is a factor, right? When you talk to sources, when you talk to operatives on the ground, Vaughn, as you've been doing, it's something that they bring up. What's interesting is the way that the front runner here is managing, in some ways, the expectation piece of it all, because in many ways, Iowa tends to be an expectation setter. You get some momentum, maybe you lose some momentum, depending how you do. Talk us through that as it relates to former President Trump, who hasn't campaigned a ton in Iowa, with obviously plans to get back there after the weekend.
Right. I was talking to a campaign senior advisor for Donald Trump who said, number one, look, even if they have a drop off in the number of folks that turn out for them, they still believe that they have a substantial enough of a margin of lead over the rest of the candidates, Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, that they'll be fine. But also, when you look at, the latest NBC News Des Moines Register poll, when folks were asked about their enthusiasm for the candidate that they said that they intend to caucus for, 70% of those who said that, 70% of those who said Donald Trump said that they were firm in their support of him. Compare that to just about 1/3 for Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. And so the Trump campaign feels very good about the firmness of their support. And, frankly, though, there is another dynamic here at play that we haven't. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Vaughn. No, go ahead. I have a question for you after, but go ahead.
There was another dynamic at play here, Hallie, which was one. I was talking to a registered Democrat here last night, and she told me that she is going to show up in this freezing cold and change her party registration on caucus night to caucus for Nikki Haley, because she said that it's imperative to stop Donald Trump from becoming the Republican nominee. So there's a lot of dynamics even beyond the weather that we got to look at.
Given the dynamic that you just laid out, though, that poll that you just showed as it relates to enthusiasm and kind of who backs who most vociferously or vehemently, if you will, explain why Ron DeSantis, then, the Florida governor, is trying to frame this as, bad cold weather could actually be a boost for him.
They believe that they have built a ground organization that has reliant voters that will come out for them. This is when we covered Ted Cruz 8 years ago. The Cruz campaign felt confident about the exact number of folks that they were going to be able to turn out in order to win the caucus. They did exactly that. Now, Ted Cruz is very different than Ron DeSantis here, but Ron DeSantis has gone through all 99 counties, has made more than 170 stops since launching his bid last May. He believes he has put in the time effort. He has met folks, and they believe that there is a certain number of folks that are highly committed to turning out. And so if Ron DeSantis, has put it in that sort of investment and frankly needs to come in second place here, well, you've got to be hopeful, or at least say that you are hopeful in front of the cameras that are on just 3 days before the caucus, Hallie.
Vaughn Hilliard in front of a camera himself. Thank you very much, my friend. Keep in mind, we've got all that Iowa caucus special coverage right here. However you're watching right now on NBC News Now, I'll see you at 5 o'clock live from Iowa, hopefully inside. I'll be joined by my colleagues Tom Yamas and Kristen Welker starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you then. So listen, back here to Washington. We've just learned the House is set to vote on the resolutions to hold Hunter Biden in contempt of Congress on Thursday. So less than a week from today, a vote that the Republican chairman of both of those key committees say they're going to move forward with unless and until Hunter Biden says, I will show up in front of you, and here's the date that I'll talk to you. That's as the president's son is making yet another move, showing he's trying to go on offense in the face of those Republican investigations against him. You've got Biden's attorney now arguing that the subpoena issued against Biden was not valid, but if Republican lawmakers issue a new one, he says he'll show up. This is capping a pretty active week for the president's son. Remember when he surprised basically everybody by showing up in D.C. for a hearing a couple days ago? I want to bring in our NBC News legal analyst, Danny Savalos, to break this one down. So let's start with, first of all, this contempt of Congress vote and the potential legal peril that it could place Hunter Biden in if it were to happen, Danny, which, as we said, those key Republicans have cracked the door open by saying if there gets to be a date on the books, maybe they won't do it.
Yeah, Hunter Biden's defense team is doing a tremendous job, in my opinion. I mean, they have come out and made the argument, and in support, they cite to Bill Barr in 2020 under the prior administration, essentially agreeing with their position, which is that if these subpoenas were issued in November of 2023, before this this impeachment inquiry was officially authorized, then they're invalid. Now, the reason that's so significant is that it may be argumentative vis-a-vis, Congress, but when it comes to DOJ has to make an independent decision whether to prosecute if there ever is a referral for prosecution. And I think that goes a long way to showing that this was arguably not even valid subpoena use of the subpoena power by Congress. So, I mean, for someone who is both looking to get out in front of any testimony that he has to give in front of Congress, and then also avoid being held in contempt and possible criminal liability, I think Hunter's defense team has done just an impressive job. And I'll just add one thing, that for the most part, criminal defense attorneys, including me, were really very risk averse. You got to admire this kind of bold approach by Hunter Biden's defense team, walking right into the middle of a House hearing, for example. It's really, really impressive, and something I wonder most criminal defense attorneys, probably including me, wouldn't be willing to take on that kind of risk, and it seems to be paying dividends.
Danny Savalos, thank you very much for that. We'll see you again, I know, as news warrants later on tonight. The head of the FAA tonight is sounding the alarm about what other issues Boeing might have with its planes a week after a piece blew out of the middle of that Boeing 737 MAX 9, that Alaska Airlines flight. I know you remember that. The FAA tells CNBC they think there may be other manufacturing problems as the agency starts to take a heavier hand in overseeing the auditing and production of the planes. It comes as Alaska Airlines is canceling all the flights on its MAX planes through Sunday while they do some inspections. That could affect as many as 150 flights a day. Tom Costello is joining us now. Okay, Tom, the FAA administrator telling our friends over at CNBC they think there could be other manufacturing problems. Put that into context.
Well, the FAA announcing today a very big development. The FAA is not comfortable, it believes, with the safety culture at Boeing right now, wondering how is it possible that they produce this plane that rolls off the assembly line and is flying in the air, and then suddenly the part blows out the side of the plane. So the FAA yesterday launched an investigation. Today, the FAA chief says we're going further than that. We now are going to up our overall assessment of and monitoring of Boeing because we're concerned about the safety culture. Here he is on CNBC.
So this is a brand new aircraft. It has just come off the line and it had significant problems. And we believe there are other manufacturing problems as well. So this is all about finding where the risks are, identifying the risks and mitigating them.
Yeah, mitigating them not only at Boeing, but also at Spirit Aerosystems, which made the fuselage with that door already in it, or I should say the door plug already in it, and then gave it to Boeing. So what the FAA is saying is we're not comfortable with this safety oversight at Boeing or its subsidiaries or the providers, if you will, the suppliers at Spirit.
So what does this extra FAA oversight, if you will, look like logistically? Is that boots on the ground? Is that, assessing every bit of paperwork? What does that mean?
And here's where it gets complicated, Hallie Jackson, because the FAA, under approval from Congress, said we don't have the staff to go put all of our own people in these, manufacturing centers, so we will deputize Boeing employees to police themselves. Boeing employees to police themselves.
So that was the landscape already.
With an FAA license, if you will, or a badge from the FAA. All right, so here's what the FAA says it's going to do now with this improved and increased oversight of Boeing. Number one, it says it's going to audit the 737-9 MAX production line, increase the monitoring of any event. It says in-service events. That means when the plane is flying. Assessment of safety risks around authority and quality. And here's what really matters. They are now considering getting a third party involved in auditing and monitoring the safety procedures at Boeing because they're not comfortable right now with Boeing doing it themselves.
A third party like who? A contractor?
An outside individual, outside contractor. But the question is, okay, who has the expertise, right?
Yeah.
Former Boeing employees, former FAA inspectors. Pretty small population.
Complicated, and in the meantime, we know those MAX 9s, at least for Alaska Airlines, will not fly at least through the weekend.
Correct.
Tom Costello, thank you so much. Appreciate that. A university president is on paid administrative leave tonight, with some students and alumni calling for his removal after an administrator's death by suicide. Antoinette Candia Bailey died by suicide Monday, weeks after family members say she told them her relationship with the university's president had deteriorated. Candy Bailey was the vice president of student affairs at Lincoln University, one of two historically black colleges in Missouri. She was also a graduate. Rahema Ellis is joining us now. Rahema, there are still a lot of questions with this story. Walk us through what we know and some of the questions that we still have.
Well, it's important to reiterate what you just said, and that is that NBC News has learned exclusively from both her mother and her husband that she told them during the holidays last month that her relationship with the university president, Dr. John Mosley, had deteriorated. Her mother and husband also said that she told them that she had been terminated by Mosley on January 3rd. This is really significant because caucus. It means she only had a 7-month tenure as the vice president of student affairs, having been appointed to that position only in May of last year. Her husband said that his wife was depressed and did not feel supported in her role at the university. You should point out the university is bringing in a third party to review personnel issues and concerns, and they said tonight, putting up a statement, "We are committed to make certain the mental health of Lincoln University employees is a priority and that every employee is always treated with dignity and respect." We should point out that Sherman Bonds, who is the president of the University National Alumni Association, is also among those who are calling for the ouster of Dr. Mosley. He said tonight, "My primary concern is institutional care has been breached, and that falls on the office of the presidency." Hallie, there are so many questions of which we do not have answers to tonight about all of what it might have been going on that caused this tragic loss of life, and that community there is in mourning tonight.
Rahima Ellis, thank you so much for that reporting. If you or anybody you know or love is struggling, there is a suicide and crisis lifeline available 24 hours a day, 988, or text HOME to the crisis text line at 741-741. Coming up here on the show, what flu numbers look like right in the middle of the season and why it seems like everybody that you know is still coughing. Plus, the Paris Olympics tapping a different kind of beverage for its official beer this summer. We'll explain. New numbers from the CDC today showing flu cases actually went down a little bit. So, good news. However, we're not out of the woods yet. Because remember, flu season peaks basically between December and February. So right about now. And the numbers are expected to go up again soon. That's partly because the CDC says vaccine rates are abysmally low. Just 47% for adults. Majority of those over 65. Overall, this newest CDC number layout shows that people getting sick, right? Fever plus cough or sore throat, that is up in most of the country. Flu levels are either high or very high in at least 32 states. Dr. John Torres is joining us now. We talk about the flu every year. People get the flu kind of every winter. There is a flu season every year. How does this compare, and what should we be thinking about now?
And Hallie, it's not just the flu, it's what we call ILI, the influenza-like illnesses, which right now includes COVID, includes RSV, includes all these other things. And when we're looking at the numbers right now, particularly for flu, and that's what the CDC does, is they are tracking them, and they are finding out some statistics that are out there. You can see right there, 14 million illnesses, 150,000 hospitalizations, unfortunately 9,400 deaths, and that includes 40 pediatric deaths, 13 in the last week alone. And so we are at that peak part of the season. Like you mentioned, it seems to be coming down, but there's this thing called a bimodal distribution. That's your word for the day, bimodal. And what that means is that we're seeing a peak, it comes down, and then we see another peak, which we typically see February timeframe. And so we're expecting that to come up. People need to protect themselves.
What about this lingering cough that basically everybody that I know still has, right? There's that, there's COVID, there's RSV. What's your sense of things?
So this lingering cough, you can hear it everywhere. I was on an airplane and just about everybody was coughing or sniffling. And that is pretty typical. You get the flu, and this one in particular seems to be even worse for this. And even though you recover from the flu or the illness you can have this cough for weeks to go on. So what you need to do is protect yourselves. And that means, foremost, wear a mask. And it's our old friend, the mask. And I know we've had them for years and people are tired of them. Get vaccinated. It's still not too late to get vaccinated. If you think about it, we're only really about halfway through the flu season. And then if you are sick, stay home, cover up when you cough and sneeze, and do the things you can to get healthy. And I can tell people all the time, one of the best things for you is chicken soup and mom's love.
Okay, Dr. John Torres, or Dr. John's love, too. That is always very helpful. Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Appreciate it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, the Justice Department says it'll seek the death penalty for the white gunman who killed 10 people in a racist shooting at a Buffalo supermarket in 2022. The attacker was sentenced to life in prison without parole on state charges last year, but he's still facing dozens of federal charges. This will be the first time that the DOJ is seeking the death penalty under President Biden. There's been a pause on federal executions since 2021. Number 2, the Biden administration is going to start canceling student loans for some people starting next month, part of a new repayment plan that's taking effect sooner than expected, like 6 months sooner than expected. It's only going to apply to people who borrowed money if they enrolled in the new SAVE plan, if they borrowed less than $12,000, and if they've been making payments for more than a decade. So that's like a Venn diagram there. No word as to how many people are in the center of that. Number 3, The New England Patriots have announced the replacement for Bill Belichick as the head coach next season. It's going to be Jared Mayo. He's been with the team since 2019 as the linebackers coach. He'll be officially introduced next week and will become the youngest coach in the NFL. He'll also be the first black head coach in Patriots history. Number 4, the Olympics is rolling out the official beer of this year's games, and there's no alcohol in it. It's the Corona Cero from Anheuser-Busch. The drink company is also the first ever global beer sponsor for the Olympics, a non-alcoholic beer for this one. Number 5, you know that kind of iconic Nicole Kidman ad you see before basically every AMC movie? Well, the suit she wears in it is going up for auction for up to $10,000. It's part of Sotheby's Visions of America auction series. When we come back, a lot more to get to. We'll take you live to Taiwan ahead of its very high-stakes presidential election. We'll tell you why the U.S. is watching the results there so closely, live from Taiwan. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Northeast Bureau, police in New Jersey are looking into whether a family member shot and killed an imam. Remember, this happened outside his Newark mosque last week. Police had said they didn't think it was motivated by bias. Now, sources are telling NBC News police are looking into whether a relative was caught on some surveillance cameras riding away from the scene on a bike. No details yet on a potential motive. Out of our Western Bureau, health officials in San Diego say 41 cases of norovirus have been linked to a batch of raw oysters from Mexico. Most of the cases so far have been traced back to the Carlsbad Aqua Farm and 3 locations of the fish shop. The fish shop tells NBC it has stopped selling and buying those specific oysters and is fully cooperating with the health department. The Carlsbad Aqua Farm also says it stopped selling the oysters. And out of our Southern Bureau, a big sinkhole swallowed up a car in downtown New Orleans last night. Look at this, very scary. You can see the car, that's the tail end of the car, like sticking up out of that hole. No word yet on whether anybody was hurt. That's just days after another car and a school bus fell into some other essential holes, basically, got hung up in the city. So we took you to some election coverage out in Iowa in this country earlier in the show. Let's take you to some other critical presidential election coverage overseas, this time in Taiwan, where right now voters are getting ready to go to the polls. Remember, it's tomorrow there today. They're getting ready to choose a president in a race that could have a ripple effect, not just in the region, but around the world. And why is that? Because voters there are going to have to choose between one of these 3 men and decide if they want a leader who will continue to create a distance between Taiwan and China or one who will embrace Beijing. Taiwan is self-governed, but China claims it as part of its territory. So there's this kind of limbo there. Beijing has vowed lately to retake Taiwan by force if necessary and regain control over what has become one of Asia's strongest democracies. It is where we find tonight our NBC's Janice Mackey-Frayer live for us in Taipei, the capital of Taiwan. Janice, we're so glad to have you there. First of all, it's morning where you are. People are waking up. They're getting ready to head out to go vote. What is the expectation here, and what should we be looking at as we're watching from our perch here in the U.S.?
Well, this is perhaps the most consequential election here since the first one in Taiwan back in 1996. Choosing a president from 3 candidates, regardless, there will be a new leader of Taiwan by the end of this day. Where they stand on the political spectrum, there isn't actually a lot of space between them. We have the ruling DPP, the Democratic People's Party. William Lai is the current vice president. He is now running for president because Tsai Ing-wen is limited to 2 terms. Over the past 8 years, the DPP has distanced itself from Beijing, and it's why we've seen a lot of tension rising across the strait. There is also the KMT, the Kuomintang, the main opposition, which over the past several weeks, Hallie, has actually gained a lot of ground. The 2 candidates are neck and neck going into this voting day. But there's a 3rd candidate to consider, too. This is a new political party, the TPP, the Taiwan People Party, with Ko Wen-je. He's actually been taking a lot of votes from these 2 political mainstays with people, primarily younger people under under the age of 40 who are looking for some sort of change, but still maintaining the status quo here in Taiwan. So these are the three candidates going into this very tight race. At the outcome, it could dictate relations between Taiwan and Beijing, which of course will have a ripple effect across the rest of the world.
Yeah, no kidding. Beijing, as you talked about, has an impact here. How has China tried to insert themselves here? What kind of effect is that having?
Well, we have to remember that from Beijing's perspective, Taiwan is part of its own territory. And it's made no secret over the past several years that of its intentions that it plans to reunify Taiwan with the mainland. They're using words like inevitable, unstoppable. This is a point that is uncompromising for Beijing, something that China's President Xi Jinping raised with President Biden directly when they were meeting in San Francisco. We've seen attempts, what experts see as attempts at disinformation here, military flyovers, increasing pressure by having military drills around the island, routine to the point that it's almost normalized. There have also been weather balloons that have been coming over, economic pressure, those sort of tactics to try to make the mainland known. We haven't, in terms of disinformation, seen the kind of overt pro-Beijing messaging that one might expect. It's actually been more nuanced, trying to sow divisions between people on almost benign issues like the price of eggs. But what there has been is a trend of what is called U.S. skepticism here. This is a type of messaging believed to be originating from the mainland that looks to sow doubt about the U.S. as a reliable partner. That's the trend that has defined this particular election campaign. Whether it's working is unclear. There are several watchdog groups that have formed over the past several years to look for these sort of trends, whether it's Chinese influencers, whether it's AI bots, to try to identify these trends in disinformation to make people more aware of them.
Real quick, Janice, as you are wearing our, road warrior campaign reporter hat for us there from Taiwan, as you're talking to people there, as you're talking to people who are getting ready to go out and vote, what are they telling you about how much sort of the China factor weighs in on their decision-making process here? What seems to be driving some of that based on the conversations you've had?
Well, it's a factor. It's a fact of life here, but it's not one that paralyzes people in their day-to-day. Certainly, it's a focal point in this election. Cross-strait relations will define the atmosphere here. But people are also concerned about all of the issues that anyone would be concerned with on an election day. Housing, the affordability, wage deflation, economic issues, climate change. So people are taking all of these issues to the polls as well. What polls have showed is that the majority of people aren't wildly in favor of independence the way that they're not wildly in favor of reunification with the mainland. What the vast majority of people here want is the status quo. They just want things in Taiwan to stay the way they are.
Janice Mackey-Farrer live for us there from Taipei. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Coming up, we're taking you inside an experiment at a women's prison that officials call the California model and others call Prisony-land. How the changes there could help both inmates and the people who work there as part of yet another series in our original coming up. So tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight it is part 2 of our series looking at California's push to fundamentally change how it operates its prisons. A trial program that puts the focus on rehab, on essentially rehabilitating prisoners to cut down on recidivism. It's up and running at 2 prisons so far, earning them, in the words of some, the nickname Prisony-land. We showed you the men's facility last week. Now, our Steve Patterson is spending time right across the street in a women's prison this time to find out how and if it's working.
The Central California Women's Facility is one of the world's largest women's prison, a place no one wants to end up. But there's a surprising sense of beauty. Manicured gardens upkept by prisoners right in the middle of the yard. It's all part of an experiment happening at 2 prisons in California. Officials calling it the California model, built on what they say are new foundational pillars like promoting positive relationships between staff and incarcerated people and aiming to make life behind bars more similar to life outside of prison. The goal is to replicate the results in Scandinavia, where Norway says reforms over the last 2.5 decades have brought down the rate of reoffending within 2 years to only 20%, much lower than here in the U.S.
If you treat an inmate with respect, he'll respect you back.
The hope back in California that the new approach inspires young women to rehabilitate, like Angela.
Did you think prison could be like this?
So initially, no. I came in with the same type of people that I like, gang members, criminals, and so I just did what I did out there in the streets and continue that behavior. But this term was different because when I came, there was a lot of programs and there was a lot of people changing.
Those programs, here to help people change, are especially important for women re-entering society. Research from the Prison Policy Initiative shows they face higher rates of unemployment and homelessness than formerly incarcerated men and are frequently the primary caretakers of their children, needing extra support. Angela says she's come a long way.
What did you do?
I found out my brother was murdered. I knew I was going to retaliate. You're not only brother and sister from the same family, but we're also from the same gang family. Wow. So it was a double whammy, and I stabbed him in the neck, and I left him there to die and try to survive.
Do you still think about that?
It hurts. The more I change, the more I think about it, like, how could I do something like that? Yeah. And so I think that's one of the hardest processes of changing, is that you have to take accountability and responsibility.
But when she came in, she was a lot more like the first-timers we met a few yards over.
I hate this place.
Why do you hate this place?
I hate this place because we get treated like inmates.
What do you mean?
I'm talking about the unfair treatment.
What don't you like about this place?
Everything.
Some young women, like Mariana, haven't yet taken advantage of all the rehabilitation programs.
The truth? Anything but the truth?
Yeah, tell me
this
the truth.
place ain't shit.
Why isn't it?
We have no program. We lock down 24/7. These people like to be all up in our business for no reason. Like, they need to mind their business. They're too involved.
But her tone changed when a lieutenant came over.
What do you want to say? I mean, the leadership's all right here. What do you want to say to them?
I can't. You know what? I cannot complain about the people here. I've met so many different types of people. I'm so used to being in a community so tight, so close, that I've expected so much, and I've learned so much from different people. I've learned from lifers. I've learned from short-termers. I've even learned from the staff.
And as we learned, it's not just the inmates who benefit from going through a shift in perspective.
So on this facility, we're doing things a little bit different.
Correctional Officer John Kuski says this new California model completely changed the way he works and gave his life a better direction.
How were you acting when you first started to the way you see the population now?
I was stereotypical, us versus them. Like, I come in, I'm a peace officer, you're an inmate. Like, I looked at him as almost subhuman. And then something clicked inside of my head, like, I'm such a hypocrite because I'm coming here and being the complete opposite.
Correctional officers here are also supposed to benefit from a more positive environment and healthier relationships with the incarcerated population. A Department of Justice review found that officers in conventional prisons face multiple stressors and elevated levels of depression and suicide, even leading to lower life expectancies than the average working age population.
I didn't learn to interact the way I interact now until I was 32 with my life experience. You know, I got 5 daughters, and now I come to work like, I kind of look at it like I got 700 daughters. Like, where do I meet them where they're at?
Officials say there's proof that the new approach is working. Just look at who's now able to get out. Angela was originally sentenced to 15 to life, but she says thanks to the program's changing her mindset and preparing her for the future, when I met her, she was 4 months away from potentially walking out the gate.
What are your feelings about getting out? Are you, like, excited, a little nervous?
I am afraid because I am a youth offender. I never took life seriously, and this is going to be my first time going out there. Yeah, I'm afraid, but the person I am today will do it afraid.
Steve Patterson is joining us now, again, with yet another just really informative and compelling report. Steve, thank you. So talk to us, though, about what seems to be part of the challenge here, which is this is a model that is happening in these prisons that you've showed us here, including that women's prison. The question is, can it scale? Is it replicable?
Well, that's exactly what California officials are asking, and likely part of the calculus on why they gave us access in the first place, right? Remember, they are trying to make this the way that California handles incarceration, but it's still early. We know that 6 other prisons have now started to adapt that model, and it's all about what data they can collect on things like recidivism rates. I would say the challenges are really all about mindset. You're asking everyone from corrections officers to parole officials to the incarcerated population itself to rethink and relearn everything they know about incarceration that goes decades deep. That takes buy-in, that takes people, that takes training, that takes facilities, that takes patience, that takes funding. It's a lot. And it's not going to be a fast-turning ship. And part of the whole experiment is what happens when these incarcerated people leave prison. You need an exit program for that. You need special skills for that. You need to be able to train these people. And that's part of our reporting as well. Happy to share that with you, hopefully next week, Hallie.
We will see you then, Steve. Consider it booked. Thank you very much. We're glad to have you. Still to come, a lot more here on the show. Because if you want to watch the game between the Chiefs and the Dolphins this weekend, you got to have Peacock. So could this playoff paywall pay off for the NFL? We're getting into it. Are you ready for some football, man? A lot of people are, but one of the biggest games of the wild card weekend that starts tomorrow is not going to be on one of the channels that you've always watched the playoffs on. Because for the first time ever, a playoff game is going to be only on streaming. It will only stream. So to watch the Chiefs, to watch the team of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce take on the Miami Dolphins with viral coach Mike McDaniel there, you're going to have to get Peacock if the teams are not your local markets. If you don't live in Miami or Kansas City, Peacock's your thing. So here's the thing for a lot of these fans. A lot of fans around the country, they're like, this sucks. Listen to the backlash. So listen, NBC Universal is reportedly paying $110 million to put this game on Peacock in the hopes that this is going to pay off big, that a bunch of people will come and subscribe. Why is that calculation happening? Because look, I want to show you this. Look at this graphic. This is the top 100 broadcasts of the past year, right? Look at how much of it was pro football. All those, that's all football. There's the little turkey. That's the Macy's Day Parade. There's the little Oscar statuette. That's the, right here. This is the Oscars, obviously. There's a couple college football games in here, too. Political programming, by the way. But, like, football everywhere. The audience is there. Okay, there is potentially a huge number of eyeballs that you can pull in to the stream. There's also the potential of alienating some of the fans who tune in. Necessary disclosure here. Peacock, of course, is owned by our parent company, NBC Universal. I want to bring in editor-at-large of The Ringer, co-host of the Press Box Pod, Brian Curtis. It is so good to see you on the show, Brian. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Hallie. Pleasure to be here.
Of course, thank you, man. So what do you think? Listen, there's a lot of yelling about this. There's a lot of, rending of the guard. There's a lot of, like, angst and anxiety about the fact that people are going to have to get Peacock to watch this game. What say you?
Well, it reminds me of when you and I were kids in the 80s and 90s, and there was one person in the house who knew how to program the VCR. When I hear those people say, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I actually had a conversation with my uncle this week, and he said he was a former NFL season ticket holder. He watches every NFL game, and he's just screaming at me like, how am I going to watch the game? And I said, you have a phone, don't you? You have a computer, don't you? So there's a little bit of a technological divide. And I also just think, look, we're stepping into the future of programming here from TV into streaming, and it's going to be weird.
Do you think this says something then about the long-term strategy? I mean, setting aside the fact that, like, people who want to see Travis Kelce and perhaps Taylor Swift, who will likely show up to support him, right? People who want to see them short-term will probably get a subscription. Talk about the long-term play here, the pros and the cons.
Well, the graphic you put up, I think, perfectly explains that the NFL is the king of television. And the NFL also wants to be the king of streaming, not number 2 in streaming behind Yellowstone or whatever other show is out there. They want to be number 1. So they want to make sure that they're going to have this. And maybe you sacrifice an audience. I think the average first-round playoff audience is like 30 million. I've seen predictions that maybe this gets in at 20 million. Peacock only has about 28 million subscribers. So you're sacrificing something basically to try to own the future.
Do you think, I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball here, but you look at some of the sort of backlash that has built about this here. Do you think that, like, in 3 years, we're going to look back, 5 years, whatever, look back on some of those moments and go, oh, man, can you believe we were ever upset about this kind of thing?
Absolutely so. I mean, first of all, it'd been a much bigger backlash if your Philadelphia Eagles were playing the Peacock game. and we had to contend with all of Philadelphia and the suburbs, you know,
Be
just
nice,
wailing, going
please.
crazy.
Please be nice to my Bucks County people.
But no, I'm serious. I think we'll look back at this and say that was a weird moment in time where we kind of knew what streaming was, or most of us knew what streaming was, but not everybody, and we got over it pretty quickly.
And let me just also state the obvious that you and I are kind of, in some ways, speaking to the choir here, because everybody who's watching us already knows how to stream. You get it. You're part of the wave of the future. And Brian, so are you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being on with us and talk through all of it. Of course, that Chiefs v. Dolphins game is tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern. And I know you know where to find it, exclusively on Peacock. That does it for us for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now. We are coming on the air tonight with crowds of people flooding the streets of Yemen, furious about those U.S.-led strikes against Houthi rebels. We've got new comments from President Biden, even as we've been coming on the air, saying there could be more to come. So what exactly does that look like? We're breaking it down in a second. Plus, dangerous, even potentially deadly cold, getting set to sweep the country. And I do mean the country, everybody, every state today at some point has been under some kind of weather alert. We'll talk about where it's the worst and where it's going to get worse coming up. Plus, we're still 3 days out from Iowa, but one of the candidates is just dropping a little surprise about their plans for right after the caucuses. The latest on a detour on the road to New Hampshire coming up in just a minute. Plus, new calls for the removal of a university president after a school vice president died by suicide. But her mother is telling NBC News exclusively about the last days of her daughter's life. And some of those new flu stats are just out from the CDC. Cases actually down a little, but doctors say don't let your guard down with them. We're going to get into what you should know at the height of the season later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we're starting with that new fallout tonight on those dramatic military strikes against the Houthis in Yemen, with President Biden in just the last 45, 50 minutes or so responding to questions about how soon he would be willing to officially designate the Houthis as terrorists. Listen.
It's irrelevant whether they're designated. We've put together a group of nations that are going to say that if they continue to act and behave as they do, we'll respond.
Okay, so you heard the president talking about the possibility of a response there. We're going to get to that in a second. All of it's coming after the Houthi rebels warned that the strikes that we brought you as breaking news on this show last night, that those strikes will not pass without a punishment. We've already seen at least some retaliation today. And it comes as the wider war that so many had feared in the Middle East could be creeping closer. I want to show you here the big crowds of people today. Look at that in the streets of the capital of Yemen, which is controlled by the Houthis. It's just some of the aftermath of those joint strikes that involved more than 60 targets in 16 locations. You can see here where all of those locations are. The Houthis say at least 5 people died, 6 people were hurt. And while the timing of the strikes themselves were ostensibly a surprise, it was a well-telegraphed one after weeks of warnings from the U.S. and the U.K. for the Houthis to stop attacking commercial ships in the Red Sea. More than 24 attacks we're talking about on more than 50 countries that all started after that war between Israel and Hamas began. According to the rebels, it's their way of protesting the killing in Gaza. So the fallout tonight, think of it in 3 big buckets. First, geopolitically. Remember, the Houthis are backed by the Iranians, so that's a concern for people watching this unfold. Second, there's the domestic fallout with anger from some in Congress on how this went down, that the Biden administration authorized these strikes. And then third, there's the economic impact here. You know, the Red Sea is so important to the global supply chain. And because of these attacks, some companies are taking longer routes to get to where they have to go. To avoid getting their ships near the Houthis, it means that those companies are spending more money. That could mean higher prices for the stuff that you buy. Courtney Kuby is joining us now. So, Courtney, with this as the landscape as we head into the evening, we know that according to your reporting out of the Pentagon, there was one ballistic missile essentially launched today by the Houthis. Didn't hit anything. The hope is that there's no more retaliation. But what are the questions that we have tonight about the capabilities of the Houthis and about what any kind of response to a response could look like on the U.S. side?
Yeah, so what we don't have a good sense yet is how much of the Houthi capability that we have seen on display for the past couple of months in the Red Sea, how much of that was degraded by these airstrikes last night. Hallie, these strikes were pretty extensive. More than 150 precision-guided bombs and missiles launched, as you said, at more than 60 targets. And they were primarily military targets, so missile launchers, warehouses where they kept some of these one-way drones, some of their munitions. They were taking the U.S. military and the British military were attempting to take out their ability to keep carrying out these strikes. But again, Hallie, we don't know, even though we know how extensive these strikes were, we don't know how much of their real capability they actually degraded here last night. But I will say one thing that we have continued to hear since the strike started last night and throughout the day today is that the U.S. is hoping that this will deter future Houthi action in the Red Sea, and the U.S. has no intention of being dragged into a larger conflict or going to war with the Houthis or with their backer, Iran. In fact, we heard from John Kirby from the National Security Council on MSNBC about that very issue a little earlier today. Here's what he had to say.
We're not interested in a war with Yemen. We're not interested in a conflict of any kind here. In fact, everything the president has been doing has been trying to prevent any escalation of conflict, including the strikes last night.
So some of our viewers may say, well, how is it that 150 different bombs and missiles launched is preventing escalation? And the idea here is there is a very strong and frankly growing concern that with these Houthi attacks in the Red Sea, if one of them were to hit a U.S. military ship, Hallie, that would immediately draw the U.S. military into a conflict. That's what they're really trying to avoid here.
And as we show this map, we have to remind people why this is such a big deal in the first place. It's because of the shipping concern, partly in the Red Sea, right, with these companies unable to get their ships through. The economic piece of it, Court, is something that to some degree has the attention, of course, of national security officials, but also others in the region and beyond. Talk us through that piece of it.
The whole world, really. I mean, this is an impact. If major companies like Maersk and others who have already talked about, and in some cases have started rerouting their ships around southern Africa, adding time, adding cost to the transit, if more and more of those companies keep doing that, this is going to have a real impact on the entire global economy. So think of it this way. If it costs more to get those goods to the location, eventually that cost is going to get passed on to the consumer and things that we buy every single day could start to cost more. Now, that is a real concern here. But in addition to that, if we see a successful attack against a large ship, like many of the oil tankers that move through that area, it could also cause oil prices to spike. Again, impact on the global economy. That's another reason that people have been asking all day, why now? Why was it the U.S. and the U.K. decided to act now? The two main reasons, candidly, Hallie, are global economy and the very real concern about this escalating with hitting a ship.
It's super important context, Court. And can you just give us a bit of a gut check before we let you go here, which is this criticism from, my perch here across the river from in Washington, sitting down the street from the Capitol here, members of Congress, some of them concerned about the way that these strikes were carried out, concerned about the authorization piece of it here. What are you hearing from the Pentagon on that end? And what is necessary and what happened here?
Yeah, so there are some members of Congress, including Democrats, who are calling for the president to use a war powers resolution. So it's essentially notifying Congress of the intent to do something like this and why. Now, I will say, Hallie, we hear this frequently after strikes like this. This wouldn't be the first time that we've heard this kind of talk, that there should be a war powers resolution. The reality is the president acted within his full authority as the commander-in-chief here. There was nothing that was illegal that was done here. It's not like they didn't check some box. I do suspect that in the coming hours or days that they will actually notify Congress with a war powers resolution. But, anyone who wants to criticize the White House saying that they acted out of turn here, legally, that's just not the case, Hallie.
Courtney Kube live for us there at the Pentagon. Courtney, great reporting for weeks now, friend. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
To the dangerous cold now sweeping the country, with every single state at some point today under some kind of weather alert for some kind of bad weather. Wind or flooding or blizzards. Look at this whiteout in Montana. You can see the wind just picking up that snow and tossing it everywhere. Obviously, this is a huge hazard with very little visibility. You can see here in Nebraska. Then down south, they're dealing with a lot of wind, some hail, the potential for tornadoes. You can imagine the travel nightmare. These planes are getting de-iced. You can't even see them. I mean, you can, but hardly, with multiple airports putting ground stops in place. 5,300 delays, 2,000 cancellations at this point tonight. And listen, yes, it is winter. Yeah, it's cold in the winter. It snows in the winter. But this storm system is unusual. It could break records. In Iowa, it could be the coldest caucus night ever on record Monday. We're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. And then in Kansas City tomorrow, the Chiefs v. Dolphins game could be one of the coldest NFL playoff games in history. Meteorologist Bill Cairns is standing by for more in the forecast. But let's start with Adrian Broadus in Chicago. And Adrian, it looks like kind of a messy mix where you are here. But the cold that we're talking about, the snow we're seeing in some spots, that is what is so critically dangerous here.
Hallie, that's right. And that is the big concern. So the city has put in place some warming centers across the area. They've also added temporary shelter for those in need and will provide transportation to those sites. But that's not all. The big advice for residents in the area is if you don't have to go out and you can stay inside, stay inside. Here it is, almost 5 o'clock local time, and we still haven't even seen the worst of it. This heavy snowfall is expected to pick up around midnight tonight, and that's when this area could see up to 45 miles per hour of wind gusts. And folks who we heard from earlier in the day say they're concerned about what will happen when the temperatures drop. Listen in.
We are not scared of the snow, but we are scared of the ice that forms on the road. So we are scared that we might slip and fall.
The real cold, it's not good to be out in it for a long time. I worry about people who have to be stuck out in it because they don't have anywhere to go.
And that's a big reason why the city has offered those warming centers. Another person in the state that is concerned about the cold, that's the state's governor, J.B. Pritzker. He sent a letter to the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, pleading with him to stop sending migrants to Chicago, at least during this dangerous cold snap. Hallie?
Adrian brought us live for us there from Chicago. Thank you, meteorologist Bill Cairns. Let me bring you in here because, you know, this could get bad here. This is abnormally cold, and it's dangerously, historically so.
It's one thing for the northern plains, Montana, the Dakotas to kind of go through it. But when all of a sudden we start talking about this cold going way far into the south where people aren't used to it, that's when we start having a lot of big issues. So let me take you through the worst of the storm right now. It's almost impossible to drive in Iowa, and they're telling everyone to stay off the roads. Wisconsin, the winds are picking up, still snowing hard. It's snowing in Michigan, but you don't have the gusty winds yet. That'll happen more tomorrow. So the purple shows you where the blizzard warnings still are. Almost all of the state of Iowa. Green Bay, first time in 5 years under a blizzard warning. Southern mountains of Boise, also just south of Boise. And this is a separate winter storm coming into the west this weekend. That storm hits the coast on Saturday, and we'll track that next week. So this storm that's remaining tonight into tomorrow, this pink shows you another about 9 to 12 inches possible, especially in Michigan. Chicago, not a lot of additional snow for you. That rain today kind of ruined your snow for the kids, but everything's going to freeze up and get very slippery later on tonight. And the winds are really starting to pick up now throughout the area. Chicago, the storm's over the top of you. That's why it's not windy there. That's why our reporter wasn't blowing around. But about 5-6 hours from now, that'll change as the storm moves out and the winds move in. The rain is now picking up in areas of Virginia, soon in Washington, D.C., and it'll pour for a couple hours tonight, so it'll be dangerous travel, and we'll have to worry about some of those fast-rising streams, the ones that still have water in them from the last big storm. And these temperatures are just, they're dangerous. The bottom line, when you're at negative 45 in Montana, you're not going out and enjoying the night outside. Negative 10 in North Platte. Wichita's down to 6. Even Kansas City now is at negative 11, and St. Louis is at 7. Why is that important? It was 50 degrees this morning in St. Louis and raining, and now your wind chill is 7, and it's an ice skating rink everywhere. So be extremely careful there in that area. And the story, Hallie, next week, of course, we got the Iowa caucus. As advertised, brutally cold. We got the football game in Kansas City Saturday night where the wind chill is going to be about negative 20. Dallas, negative 1. We're worried about Texas and the power demand and, if they can keep up with it next week. And that Buffalo football game, Hallie, the forecast is for 1 to 2 feet of snow, 40 to 60 mile per hour winds with single digits. There's a chance the NFL could either delay the game or possibly move it to Cleveland instead if they can't get the stadium ready in time. So that'll be one of those. There's just a lot of weather stories coast to coast.
Jeez. I mean, honestly, putting the Wild in Wild Card weekend this weekend as far as it relates to football. Bill Cairns, thank you very much. Appreciate it. As Bill just laid out, it's the backstory to why you are seeing a freeze in campaigning in Iowa, quite literally, with Republican candidates canceling stops because of how bad the snow and the wind is getting. But don't worry, it gets worse because the high, as Bill just laid out in the forecast, is maybe 0 degrees, wind chill as bad as 42 below. However, it is not the weather, but political strategy that has one candidate potentially making a kind of strategy surprise shift for his day after caucus plans. We're talking about Ron DeSantis. with his campaign telling us that he's going to head right to South Carolina, not New Hampshire, for an event right after the caucuses wrap. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard is braving all of it from Des Moines. And let me explain the reason why this is kind of interesting here, right? DeSantis has a lot riding on his performance in Iowa. Is he going to come in second place? What's his margin going to be? It's the sort of the race for second for him. Typically, right, and you know this, everybody gets on a plane Monday night, you show up in New Hampshire Tuesday, right? Like that's kind of the typical arc of things. We obviously did not see that with President Biden back during his campaign, right? That's a notable exception. Sounds like Ron DeSantis is going to be another notable exception. He will campaign in New Hampshire, but he's making very clear that he's in this for the long haul if he's looking ahead to South Carolina, which is still a month plus away.
Right, and I think the foremost, Hallie, is it's a recognition by Ron DeSantis is that he's not going to be able to beat Donald Trump in every state here, you know. Iowa caucuses is this Monday night, and polling shows Donald Trump in a sturdy lead. But then when you look at New Hampshire, right now, Ron DeSantis is in the single digits, and Nikki Haley is polling a strong second there. And so Ron DeSantis is making the calculation that if he wants to vie to be that Trump alternative, throw up your hands, say, all right, we're going to not play in New Hampshire. Instead, we're going to look further beyond. But South Carolina is not until a whole month after here, the Iowa caucus, late February here. And there's, in fact, another state that is going to be even voting before South Carolina. That is the Nevada caucus on February 8th. So Ron DeSantis is making a play that is more favorable, conservative territory for him. Of course, at the same time, Hallie, Nikki Haley is literally where she was the governor of. So there's a lot of dynamics at play. But right now, for all of the candidates, they are here in the state of Iowa. Donald Trump has not arrived here yet, I should say. But Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis both having to cancel political events here today because of those blizzard conditions here, which has only made it more difficult for them at a time in which they need to reach as many voters as they can.
What about the Trump factor here, Vaughn? Because I think that as we get closer and closer to Iowa, as you know, it's important to lay out what the sort of macro state of play is right now. And I kind of hate that phrase, state of play, but the way that this race is looking. And that is this. The thing that I think a lot of political reporters are looking at for Iowa is how much potentially could Donald Trump win by? What's the margin? And does he get over 50%, which would be an indication that he can, in fact, consolidate the Republican Party behind him? And then there's kind of the race for second dynamic. When it comes to Donald Trump himself, tell me what you're hearing as far as expectation setting from his campaign and the closing argument that they're continuing to make as we round the corner to Iowa.
Right. I am told that they are ready to make the case that Donald Trump is even better positioned now than he was when he first ran for president. Folks will recall Donald Trump didn't win the Iowa caucus 8 years ago.
That's right.
It was Texas Senator Ted Cruz who beat him. And Ted Cruz actually beat him in several other states. And so they're making the case that Iowa is just one example of where he has already expanded his appeal. And you'll also recall that there was a more fractured field, though, back in 2016. There were still multiple candidates that were even campaigning in the state of New Hampshire. And, you know, they say that their internal polling shows, even if it was a one-on-one matchup with Nikki Haley in New Hampshire, they said their polling still shows 8%. So, of course, this is a team that has never lacked oozing of robust confidence out for the masses here. At the same time, the data has shown in every state that we have looked at that he is leading, if not holding a dominant lead here. But now this comes the point in time. Is there a silent constituency that maybe hasn't been as vocal in wanting to move the Republican Party in a different direction? Ultimately, Monday will be our first test case here. But right now, Donald Trump feels pretty good, and his light schedule over the last week in terms of campaigning is evidence of that.
It also is worth noting, Vaughn, just because of the dynamic right now in 2024, as we look back to 2016, that was also in many ways, after Iowa in 2016, when Ted Cruz beat him, the birth of some of the election fraud claims by Donald Trump, albeit on a much smaller scale in a single state.
Right. And he claimed that Ted Cruz actually stole the Iowa caucus for him, which was early evidence. And it was Ted Cruz that
had no evidence
made
of
the case in the weeks that followed.
Right? Yeah.
No, there was no evidence of the stealing. And Ted Cruz made the fact that Donald Trump, at the time, he said he called it a Trumper tantrum whenever he loses. And, of course, it complicated for not only Ted Cruz, but the entire Republican Party when Donald Trump became the nominee. And suddenly they had to cozy up a little bit, or I should say they chose to cozy up to the Republican nominee who would go on to beat Hillary Clinton.
Vaughn Hilliard, live for us there in Iowa. We are glad to see you inside, friend. Hope you get to stay there throughout the weekend. And I will see you and our viewers there on Monday. Heading out there myself this weekend for all of our Iowa caucus coverage. That begins Monday night right here on NBC News Now. I'll see you at 5 o'clock Eastern. My friends Tom Yamas, Kristen Welker will pick it up after 7. So here in Washington, there's yet another move showing Hunter Biden trying to go on offense in the face of those Republican investigations against him. Just days before the House is set to vote on holding him in contempt of Congress, a vote that we've just learned will happen Thursday. Now, that vote is going to happen Thursday, according to the powerful Republican chairman of 2 key committees, unless and until Hunter Biden confirms a date to show up and be deposed, to show up and answer questions, essentially. But here's the thing. Biden's attorneys today are now saying that the subpoena issued against Hunter Biden was not actually valid. However, if those Republicans issue a new one, they say he will show up. It's capping a pretty active week for the president's son, including him surprising, like everybody, by showing up in D.C. a couple days ago for a different hearing. I want to bring in our NBC News legal analyst, Danny Savalos, to break this down. And I would just want to pause here because I do think that there is some level of like a lot of Hunter Biden talk this week, the ins and the outs and the legal issues and the political issues, et cetera. In the plainest English possible, explain what is happening right now with Hunter Biden and the potential risks he faces next week if this contempt of Congress vote goes down.
Yeah, members of Congress want Hunter Biden to come in for a closed-door deposition. Hunter Biden says instead, I will only testify in a public hearing. That's why he came in a very symbolic show, marched into a hearing this week and sat. It was a hearing to discuss his potential contempt proceedings. So going forward, what his defense team now, as of today, submitted a letter arguing that, well, when those original subpoenas were issued, it was November. It was before there was an official impeachment inquiry authorized. Therefore, they are invalid subpoenas. So that's basically the defense team's plan. And they're going on the offensive. They're not going defensive.
What about the way that you are seeing some of this play out on the legal front, right? So not just with the issue of the investigations and the hearings in Congress, but with some of the legal challenges that Hunter Biden faces. We saw him arraigned in Los Angeles just this week, just yesterday, 2 days ago, actually. I'm sorry, I lost track of time. This week, I think it's fair to say. You've got lots of sort of moving pieces. It relates to the separate gun charge against him. What do you see as the potential biggest risk for the president's son here from a legal perspective?
Well, the biggest risk is a federal prosecution, but keep in mind, he had a deal in place that would have gotten him pretrial diversion, which is something, and I practice in federal court, candidly, I scarcely knew it existed. That's how good a deal pretrial diversion is. So even in my view, even if Hunter discussed a plea deal that didn't involve that earlier deal that blew up, it might still be a favorable one. It really depends on what the government wants to do. 90+% of federal cases end in a plea. Hunter Biden, if you're just playing the odds, will at least be exploring the possibility of a plea deal. And it may not be all that bad of a deal. The challenge for someone like Hunter is that his earlier deal was just so fantastic that his lawyers got for him that anything after that may seem like a step down, but it may not be.
Danny Savalos, our NBC News legal analyst, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll talk again in the days to come. So the head of the FAA is sounding the alarm about what other issues Boeing might have with its planes a week after a piece blew out of the middle of that 737 MAX 9, that Alaska Airlines plane. I know you remember that. The FAA telling CNBC they think there may be other manufacturing problems as the agency starts to take a heavier hand in overseeing and auditing the production of the planes. It comes as Alaska Airlines is canceling all flights on the MAX planes through Sunday while they do some inspections. That'll affect as many as 150 flights per day. Tom Costello is joining us now. Okay, Tom, the FAA administrator telling our friends over at CNBC they think there could be other manufacturing problems. Put that into context.
Well, the FAA announcing today a very big development. The FAA is not comfortable, it believes, with the safety culture at Boeing right now, wondering how is it possible that they produce this plane that rolls off the assembly line and is flying in the air, and then suddenly the part blows out the side of the plane. So the FAA yesterday launched an investigation. Today, the FAA chief says we're going further than that. We now are going to up our overall assessment of and monitoring of Boeing because we're concerned about the safety culture. Here he is on CNBC.
So this is a brand new aircraft. It has just come off the line and it had significant problems. And we believe there are other manufacturing problems as well. So this is all about finding where the risks are, identifying the risks and mitigating them.
Yeah, mitigating them not only at Boeing, but also at Spirit Aerosystems, which made the fuselage with that door already in it, or I should say the door plug already in it, and then gave it to Boeing. So what the FAA is saying is we're not comfortable with this safety oversight at Boeing or its subsidiaries or the providers, if you will, the suppliers at Spirit.
So what does this extra FAA oversight, if you will, look like logistically? Is that boots on the ground? Is that, assessing every bit of paperwork? What does that mean?
And here's where it gets complicated, Hallie Jackson, because the FAA, under approval from Congress, said we don't have the staff to go put all of our own people in these, manufacturing centers, so we will deputize Boeing employees to police themselves. Boeing employees to police themselves.
So that was the landscape already.
With an FAA license, if you will, or a badge from the FAA. All right, so here's what the FAA says it's going to do now with this improved and increased oversight of Boeing. Number one, it says it's going to audit the 737-9 MAX production line, increase the monitoring of any event. It says in-service events. That means when the plane is flying. Assessment of safety risks around authority and quality. And here's what really matters. They are now considering getting a third party involved in auditing and monitoring the safety procedures at Boeing because they're not comfortable right now with Boeing doing it themselves.
A third party like who? A contractor?
An outside individual, outside contractor. But the question is, okay, who has the expertise, right?
Yeah.
Former Boeing employees, former FAA inspectors. Pretty small population.
Complicated, and in the meantime, those MAX 9s, at least for Alaska Airlines, will not fly at least through the weekend.
Correct.
Tom Costello, thank you so much. Appreciate that. A university president is on paid administrative leave tonight, with some students and alumni calling for his removal after an administrator's death by suicide. Antoinette Candia Bailey died by suicide Monday, weeks after family members say she told them her relationship with the university's president has deteriorated. She was the VP of Student Affairs at Lincoln University, one of two historically black colleges in Missouri. She was also a graduate. Rahema Ellis is joining us now. Rahema, there are still a lot of questions with this story. Walk us through what we know and some of the questions that we still have.
Well, it's important to reiterate what you just said, and that is that NBC News has learned exclusively from both her mother and her husband that she told them during the holidays last month that her relationship with the university president, Dr. John Mosley, had deteriorated. Her mother and husband also said that she told them that she had been terminated by Mosley on January 3rd. This is really significant because it means she only had a 7-month tenure as the vice president of student affairs, having been appointed to that position only in May of last year. Her husband said that his wife was depressed and did not feel supported in her role at the university. You should point out the university is bringing in a third party to review personnel issues and concerns, and they said tonight, putting up a statement, we are committed to make certain the mental health of Lincoln University employees is a priority and that every employee is always treated with dignity and respect. We should point out that Sherman Bonds, who is the president of the University National Alumni Association, is also among those who are calling for the ouster of Dr. Mosley. He said tonight, my primary concern is institutional care has been breached, and that falls on the office of the presidency. Hallie, there are so many questions of which we do not have answers to tonight about all of what it might have been going on that caused this tragic loss of life, and that community there is in mourning tonight.
Rahema Ellis, thank you so much for that reporting. If you or anybody you know or love is struggling, there is a suicide and crisis lifeline available 24 hours a day, 988, or text HOME to the crisis text line at 741-741. Coming up here on the show, calls for an investigation tonight after the death of the star of the movie Parasite by the film's director. Says there are questions around how police handled the case. Plus, country rock star testifying on Capitol Hill. We'll tell you what he's pushing for, with Jelly Roll making that appearance. New numbers out of the CDC today shows flu cases, the number of flu cases actually went down a little bit, but we are not out of the woods yet. That is because we are in the midst of the peak of flu season right now. Numbers are expected to go up again soon. That's partly because the CDC says vaccination rates are abysmally low, just 47% for adults. It's better for older adults, 74%. Overall, these latest stats out today show that respiratory illness, so fever plus cough or sore throat, That kind of sickness is up in most of the country, and the flu levels are either high or very high in at least 32 states. Dr. John Torres is joining us now. Okay, it is always flu season in the winter. We always sort of feel like people are getting sick. How does this compare with previous seasons, especially when it comes to the vaccine rate right now?
And right now we're seeing the numbers that you just talked about and how flu is actually affecting people. And it seems to be coming down a little bit, but they're saying just for this 1 week is the first time they've seen that decline. And we expect what's called a bimodal distribution. In other words, it's going to come down a little bit from a peak, and it's going to go right back up, which we've seen in the past. But this year, we're seeing some numbers that do have us a bit concerned. If you look at hospitalizations, around 14 million illnesses here from flu around the country. Hospitalizations, 150,000 hospitalizations, and unfortunately 9,400 deaths from the flu. That includes 40 pediatric deaths, 13 in the last week alone. And so we're seeing those numbers out there that do have us concerned, and the concern is this is going to get worse, which typically does kind of end of January, beginning of February timeframe. With those low vaccination rates, that's certainly not going to help things out.
So what advice do you have for patients? What is the thing that you're thinking about the most as we turn the corner now into these next few weeks?
You know, the biggest thing is getting vaccinated. It's still not too late. Yeah. If you think about it, we're only about halfway through the flu season. And the other, we're only about halfway through. And the vaccine, as I tell people, it takes 2 weeks to take full effect, but every day you have it, you're more protected than you were the day before. And of course, the masks. I know we're tired of them, but this is one of the best things you can do, especially from all the coughing and hacking we're seeing around the country. I was on an airplane last week, and everybody was kind of coughing throughout the airplane, so I just put my mask on to try and protect myself. And then if you are sick, stay home like we always talk about, especially if you're going to be around people that are more vulnerable. And then don't forget, COVID, RSV, those are still out there. Particularly COVID, you can test for that and stay away from people if you're sick.
Dr. Torres, that's all good advice as we hit this indoor cold season, that's for sure. Appreciate it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, the Supreme Court is agreeing today to consider whether cities can punish people experiencing homelessness for sleeping on public land. Local officials in cities like LA, San Francisco, and Phoenix have asked the court to overturn a lower court's ruling that says banning people from camping on public property when they don't have anywhere else to go violates constitutional protections against cruel and unusual punishment. That ruling only applies to 9 states right now, but that's something folks will be looking to at the end of the Supreme Court term. Number 2, Jelly Roll calling for stronger bills, stronger laws, essentially, against the fentanyl crisis. There he is, testifying in front of a Senate committee, asking them to pass the Fend Off Fentanyl Act, saying, I've attended more funerals than I care to share. Of course, the Grammy-nominated musician has been open about his own struggles with drug addiction and his past as a drug dealer. Number 3, the New England Patriots today announcing, well, not announcing just yet, but the word, not the official big-time deal, but Jared Mayo is going to replace Bill Belichick as the next head coach. That's the bottom line. He's been with the team since 2019 as the linebackers coach. The big whole thing will happen next week. That's the big official introduction. He's going to have his day. It's going to be this moment for the Pats, and he will become, at that point, the youngest coach in the NFL. He'll also be the first black head coach in Patriots history. Number 4, the Olympics just announced the official beer of this year's games. It's from Corona, but let me tell you what it doesn't have. Any alcohol. It's the first ever global beer sponsor, Anheuser-Busch, for the Olympics. Interesting choice there. Number 5, looks like Top Gun 3 may be in the works at Paramount. According to Variety, it's tapping a co-writer from Top Gun Maverick to work on a script for the new movie. No word yet on whether the stars of the second Top Gun will be back. We will be back for sure. And when we do, officials in Peru say the stuff seized at an airport, these are not aliens, if you were wondering, and apparently some people were. We'll tell you what they are instead. Plus, a group of marathon runners given hot broth and tea instead of water. We'll explain why. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our teams around the world have done it for you. Here are some of what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of South Korea, the director of the movie Parasite, Bong Joon-ho, and some other artists are calling for an investigation into the death of a popular Korean actor in a nationally televised news conference today. They're questioning whether police leaked information and fueled embarrassing media speculation about an actor's private life before his death late last month. Officials say actor Lee Sung-kyun was found dead in his car in what is widely believed to have been a death by suicide. It happened after a weeks-long police investigation into his alleged drug use. Out of Peru, it is apparently a mystery solved. Forensic experts say these figurines, these figures that look like dolls discovered by customs officials at an airport, are not, in fact, alien corpses. They felt like they had to explain not alien bodies. Instead, they're just made of like paper and glue and a mix of animal and human bones. They were headed to an unidentified recipient in Mexico. Remember a few months ago, we told you how a Mexican journalist presented similar-looking dolls to that country's Congress? Not these ones, claiming they were non-human beings from another planet found in Peru. And in Russia, a group of runners braving crazy cold, extreme cold, 52 degrees below 0 Celsius cold during a marathon in Siberia. One person told reporters she got the hang of it eventually, remembering to remove the ice from her eyes after the first few miles. You must have to love running for that. You gotta just be obsessed with it. Let's take a look now at another important election, not the one that's coming up in the United States later this year, but the one happening. Voters are voting today in Taiwan. That's right, people there, it's the morning there, they're getting ready to head to the polls to choose a president in a race that could have a ripple effect across the region and around the world. Why is that? Because voters there will need to choose between one of these three men to decide if they want a leader who will continue to create distance between Taiwan and China or one who will embrace Beijing. Taiwan is self-governed, but China claims it as part of its territory, which leaves this kind of limbo for Taiwan. Beijing has promised in recent years to retake Taiwan by force if they have to, and to regain control over what has become one of Asia's strongest democracies. NBC's Janice Mackey-Freyer is live for us in Taipei, in the capital of Taiwan. Janice, we're so glad to have you there. First of all, it's morning where you are. People are waking up. They're getting ready to head out to go vote. What is the expectation here, and what should we be looking at as we're watching from our perch here in the U.S.?
Well, this is perhaps the most consequential election here since the first one in Taiwan back in 1996. Choosing a president from three candidates, regardless, there will be a new leader of Taiwan by the end of this day. Where they stand on the political spectrum, there isn't actually a lot of space between them. We have the ruling DPP, the Democratic People's Party. William Lai is the current vice president. He is now running for president because Tsai Ing-wen is limited to 2 terms. Over the past 8 years, the DPP has distanced itself from Beijing, and it's why we've seen a lot of tension rising across the strait. There's also the KMT, the Kuomintang, the main opposition, which over the past several weeks, Hallie, has actually gained a lot of ground. The two candidates are neck and neck going into this voting day. But there's a third candidate to consider, too. This is a new political party, the TPP, the Taiwan's People Party, with Ko Wen-je. He's actually been taking a lot of votes from these two political mainstays with people, primarily younger people under the age of 40, who are looking for some sort of change, but still maintaining the status quo here in Taiwan. So these are the three candidates going into this very tight race. At the outcome, it could dictate relations between Taiwan and Beijing, which of course will have a ripple effect across the rest of the world.
Yeah, no kidding. Beijing, as you talked about, has an impact here. How has China tried to insert themselves here? What kind of effect does that have?
Well, we have to remember that from Beijing's perspective, Taiwan is part of its own territory. And it's made no secret over the past several years that of its intentions, that it plans to reunify Taiwan with the mainland. They're using words like inevitable, unstoppable. This is a point that is uncompromising for Beijing, something that China's President Xi Jinping raised with President Biden directly when they were meeting in San Francisco. We've seen attempts, what experts see as attempts at disinformation here, military flyovers, increasing pressure by having military drills around the island, routine to the point that it's almost normalized. There have also been weather balloons that have been coming over, economic pressure, those sort of tactics to try to make the mainland known. We haven't, in terms of disinformation, seen the kind of overt pro-Beijing messaging that one might expect. It's actually been more nuanced, trying to sow divisions between people on almost benign issues like the price of eggs. But what there has been is a trend of what is called U.S. skepticism here. This is a type of messaging believed to be originating from the mainland that looks to sow doubt about the U.S. as a reliable partner. That's the trend that has defined this particular election campaign. Whether it's working is unclear. There are several watchdog groups that have formed over the past several years to look for these sort of trends, whether it's Chinese influencers, whether it's AI bots, to try to identify these trends in disinformation to make people more aware of them.
Real quick, Janice, as you are wearing our, road warrior campaign reporter hat for us there from Taiwan, as you're talking to people there, as you're talking to people who are getting ready to go out and vote, what are they telling you about how much sort of the China factor weighs in on their decision-making process here? What seems to be driving some of that based on the conversations you've had?
Well, it's a factor. It's a fact of life here, but it's not one that paralyzes people in their day-to-day. Certainly, it's a focal point in this election. Cross-strait relations will define the atmosphere here. But people are also concerned about all of the issues that anyone would be concerned with on an election day. Housing, the affordability, wage deflation, economic issues, climate change. So people are taking all of these issues to the polls as well. What polls have showed is that the majority of people aren't wildly in favor of independence the way that they're not wildly in favor of reunification with the mainland. What the vast majority of people here want is the status quo. They just want things in Taiwan to stay the way they are.
Janice Mackey-Frere live for us there from Taipei. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Coming up, we're taking you inside an experiment at a women's prison that officials call the California model and others call Prisony-land. How the changes there could help both inmates and the people who work there as part of yet another series in our original coming up. So tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight it is part 2 of our series looking at California's push to fundamentally change how it operates its prisons. A trial program that puts the focus on rehab, on essentially rehabilitating prisoners to cut down on recidivism. It's up and running at 2 prisons so far, earning them, in the words of some, the nickname Prisony-land. We showed you the men's facility last week. Now, our Steve Patterson is spending time right across the street in a women's prison this time to find out how and if it's working.
The Central California Women's Facility is one of the world's largest women's prison, a place no one wants to end up. But there's a surprising sense of beauty. Manicured gardens upkept by prisoners right in the middle of the yard. It's all part of an experiment happening at 2 prisons in California. Officials calling it the California model, built on what they say are new foundational pillars like promoting positive relationships between staff and incarcerated people and aiming to make life behind bars more similar to life outside of prison. The goal is to replicate the results in Scandinavia, where Norway says reforms over the last 2.5 decades have brought down the rate of reoffending within 2 years to only 20%, much lower than here in the U.S.
If you treat an inmate with respect, he'll respect you back.
The hope back in California that the new approach inspires young women to rehabilitate, like Angela.
Did you think prison could be like this?
So initially, no. I came in with the same type of people that I like, gang members, criminals, and so I just did what I did out there in the streets and continued that behavior. But this term was different because when I came, there was a lot of programs and there was a lot of people changing.
Those programs, here to help people change, are especially important for women re-entering society. Research from the Prison Policy Initiative shows they face higher rates of unemployment and homelessness than formerly incarcerated men and are frequently the primary caretakers of their children, needing extra support. Angela says she's come a long way.
What did you do?
I found out my brother was murdered. I knew I was going to retaliate. You're not only
brother and sister from the same family, but we're also from the same gang family. Wow. So it was a double whammy, and I stabbed him in the neck, and I left him there to die and try to survive.
Do you still think about that?
It hurts. The more I change, the more I think about it, like, how could I do something like that? And so I think that's one of the hardest processes of changing, is that you have to take accountability and responsibility.
But when she came in, she was a lot more like the first-timers we met a few yards over.
I hate this place.
Why do you hate this place?
I hate this place because we get treated like inmates.
What do you mean?
I'm talking about the unfair treatment.
What don't you like about this place?
Everything.
Some young women, like Mariana, haven't yet taken advantage of all the rehabilitation programs.
The truth? Anything but the truth?
Yeah, tell me
this place ain't shit.
Why isn't it?
We have no program. We lock down 24/7. These people like to be all up in our business for no reason. Like, they need to mind their business. They're too involved.
But her tone changed when a lieutenant came over.
What do you want to say? I mean, the leadership's all right here. What do you want to say to them?
I can't, you know what? I cannot complain about the people here. I've met so many different types of people. I'm so used to being in a community so tight, so close, that I've expected so much, and I've learned so much from different people. I've learned from lifers, I've learned from short-termers, I've even learned from the staff.
And as we learned, it's not just the inmates who benefit from going through a shift in perspective.
So on this facility, we're doing things a little bit different.
Correctional Officer John Kuski says this new California model completely changed the way he works and gave his life a better direction.
How were you acting when you first started to the way you see the population now?
I was stereotypical, us versus them. Like, I come in, I'm a peace officer, you're an inmate. Like, I looked at him as almost subhuman. And then something clicked inside of my head, like, I'm such a hypocrite because I'm coming here and being the complete opposite.
Correctional officers here are also supposed to benefit from a more positive environment and healthier relationships with the incarcerated population. A Department of Justice review found that officers in conventional prisons face multiple stressors and elevated levels of depression and suicide, even leading to lower life expectancies than the average working age population.
I didn't learn to interact the way I interact now until I was 32 with my life experience. You know, I got 5 daughters, and now I come to work like, I kind of look at it like I got 700 daughters. Like, where do I meet them where they're at?
Officials say there's proof that the new approach is working. Just look at who's now able to get out. Angela was originally sentenced to 15 to life, but she says thanks to the program's changing her mindset and preparing her for the future, when I met her, she was 4 months away from potentially walking out the gate.
What are your feelings about getting out? Are you, like, excited, a little nervous?
I am afraid because I am a youth offender. I never took life seriously, and this is going to be my first time going out there. Yeah, I'm afraid, but the person I am today will do it afraid.
Steve Patterson is joining us now, again, with yet another just really informative and compelling report. Steve, thank you. So talk to us, though, about what seems to be part of the challenge here, which is this is a model that is happening in these prisons that you've showed us here, including that women's prison. The question is, can it scale? Is it replicable?
Well, that's exactly what California officials are asking, and likely part of the calculus on why they gave us access in the first place, right? Remember, they are trying to make this the way that California handles incarceration, but it's still early. We know that 6 other prisons have now started to adapt that model, and it's all about what data they can collect on things like recidivism rates. I would say the challenges are really all about mindset. You're asking everyone from corrections officers to parole officials to the incarcerated population itself to rethink and relearn everything they know about incarceration that goes decades deep. That takes buy-in, that takes people, that takes training, that takes facilities, that takes patience, that takes funding. It's a lot. And it's not going to be a fast-turning ship. And part of the whole experiment is what happens when these incarcerated people leave prison. You need an exit program for that. You need special skills for that. You need to be able to train these people. And that's part of our reporting as well. Happy to share that with you, hopefully next week, Hallie.
We will see you then, Steve. Consider it booked. Thank you very much. We're glad to have you. Still to come, a lot more here on the show. Because if you want to watch the game between the Chiefs and the Dolphins this weekend, you got to have Peacock. So could this playoff paywall pay off for the NFL? We're getting into it. Are you ready for some football, man? A lot of people are, but one of the biggest games of the wild card weekend that starts tomorrow is not going to be on one of the channels that you've always watched the playoffs on. Because for the first time ever, a playoff game is going to be only on streaming. It will only stream. So to watch the Chiefs, to watch the team of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce take on the Miami Dolphins with viral coach Mike McDaniel there, you're going to have to get Peacock if the teams are not your local markets. If you don't live in Miami or Kansas City, Peacock's your thing. So here's the thing for a lot of these fans. A lot of fans around the country, they're like, this sucks. Listen to the backlash. So listen, NBC Universal is reportedly paying $110 million to put this game on Peacock in the hopes that this is going to pay off big, that a bunch of people will come and subscribe. Why is that calculation happening? Because look, I want to show you this. Look at this graphic. This is the top 100 broadcasts of the past year, right? Look at how much of it was pro football. All those, that's all football. There's the little turkey. That's the Macy's Day Parade. There's a little Oscar statuette. That's the, right here, this is the Oscars, obviously. There's a couple college football games in here, too. Political programming, by the way. But, like, football everywhere. The audience is there. Okay, there is potentially a huge number of eyeballs that you can pull in to the stream. There's also the potential of alienating some of the fans who tune in. Necessary disclosure here. Peacock, of course, is owned by our parent company, NBC Universal. I want to bring in editor-at-large of The Ringer, co-host of the Press Box Pod, Brian Curtis. It is so good to see you on the show, Brian. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Hallie. Pleasure to be here.
Of course, thank you, man. So what do you think? Listen, there's a lot of yelling about this. There's a lot of, rending of the guard. There's a lot of, like, angst and anxiety about the fact that people are going to have to get Peacock to watch this game. What say you?
Well, it reminds me of when you and I were kids in the 80s and 90s, and there was one person in the house who knew how to program the VCR. When I hear those people say, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I actually had a conversation with my uncle this week, and he said he was a former NFL season ticket holder. He watches every NFL game, and he's just screaming at me like, how am I going to watch the game? And I said, you have a phone, don't you? You have a computer, don't you? So there's a little bit of a technological divide. And I also just think, look, we're stepping into the future of programming here from TV into streaming, and it's going to be weird.
Do you think this says something then about the long-term strategy? I mean, setting aside the fact that, like, people who want to see Travis Kelce and perhaps Taylor Swift, who will likely show up to support him, right? People who want to see them short-term will probably get a subscription. Talk about the long-term play here, the pros and the cons.
Well, the graphic you put up, I think, perfectly explains that the NFL is the king of television. And the NFL also wants to be the king of streaming, not number two in streaming behind Yellowstone or whatever other show is out there. They want to be number one. So they want to make sure that they're going to have this. And maybe you sacrifice an audience. I think the average first-round playoff audience is like 30 million. I've seen predictions that maybe this gets in at 20 million. Peacock only has about 28 million subscribers. So you're sacrificing something basically to try to own the future.
Do you think, I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball here, but you look at some of the sort of backlash that has built about this here. Do you think that, like, in 3 years, we're going to look back, 5 years, whatever, look back on some of those moments and go, oh, man, can you believe we were ever upset about this kind of thing?
Absolutely so. I mean, first of all, it'd been a much bigger backlash if your Philadelphia Eagles were playing the Peacock game and we had to contend with all of Philadelphia and the suburbs,
Be
just
nice,
wailing, going
please.
crazy.
Please be nice to my Bucks County people.
But no, I'm serious. I think we'll look back at this and say that was a weird moment in time where we kind of knew what streaming was, or most of us knew what streaming was, but not everybody, and we got over it pretty quickly.
And let me just also state the obvious that you and I are kind of, in some ways, speaking to the choir here, because everybody who's watching us already knows how to stream. You get it. You're part of the wave of the future. And Brian, so are you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being on with us and talk through all of it. Of course, that Chiefs v. Dolphins game is tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern. And I know you know where to find it, exclusively on Peacock. That does it for us for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now.
It is the utterly disgraceful, greedy reach by the NFL.
The poor person who's 75 years of age, who's followed the Chiefs since Stram and Len Dawson, has got to figure out on his remote where to get the stupid game and pay for the streaming service to see a playoff game.
So listen, NBC Universal is reportedly paying $110 million to put this game on Peacock in the hopes that this is going to pay off big, that a bunch of people will come and subscribe. Why is that calculation happening? Because, look, I want to show you this. Look at this graphic. This is the top 100 broadcasts of the past year, right? Look at how much of it was pro football. All those, that's all football. There's the little turkey. That's the Macy's Day Parade. There's a little Oscar statuette. That's the right here. This is the Oscars. Obviously, there's a couple college football games in here, too. Political programming, by the way. But like football everywhere. The audience is there. OK, there is potentially a huge number of eyeballs that you can pull into the stream. There's also the potential of alienating some of the fans who tune in. Necessary disclosure here. Peacock, of course, is owned by our parent company, NBC Universal. I want to bring in editor-at-large of The Ringer, co-host of the Press Box Pod, Brian Curtis. It is so good to see you on the show, Brian. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Hallie. Pleasure to be here.
Of course, thank you, man. So what do you think? Listen, there's a lot of yelling about this. There's a lot of, rending of the guard. There's a lot of like angst and anxiety about the fact that people are going to have to get Peacock to watch this game. What say you?
Well, it reminds me of when you and I were kids in the 80s and 90s, and there was one person in the house who knew how to program the VCR. When I hear those people say, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I actually had a conversation with my uncle this week, and he said he was a former NFL season ticket holder. He watches every NFL game, and he's just screaming at me like, how am I going to watch the game? And I said, you have a phone, don't you? You have a computer, don't you? So there's a little bit of a technological divide. And I also just think, look, we're stepping into the future of programming here from TV into streaming, and it's going to be weird.
Do you think this says something then about the long-term strategy? I mean, setting aside the fact that like people who want to see Travis Kelce and perhaps Taylor Swift, who will likely show up to support him, right? People who want to see them short-term will probably get a subscription. Talk about the long-term play here, the pros and the cons.
Well, the graphic you put up, I think, perfectly explains that the NFL is the king of television. And the NFL also wants to be the king of streaming, not number 2 in streaming behind Yellowstone or whatever other show is out there. They want to be number 1. So they want to make sure that they're going to have this. And maybe you sacrifice an audience. I think the average first-round playoff audience is like 30 million. I've seen predictions that maybe this gets in at 20 million. Peacock only has about 28 million subscribers. So you're sacrificing something basically to try to own the future.
Do you think, I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball here, but you look at some of the sort of backlash that has built about this here. Do you think that like in 3 years, we're going to look back, 5 years, whatever, look back on some of those moments and go, oh man, can you believe we were ever upset about this kind of thing?
Absolutely so. I mean, first of all, it'd been a much bigger backlash if your Philadelphia Eagles were playing the Peacock game and we had to contend with all of Philadelphia and the suburbs,
be
just
nice,
wailing,
please.
going crazy.
Please be nice to my Bucks County people.
But no, I'm serious. I think we'll look back at this and say that was a weird moment in time where we kind of knew what streaming was, or most of us knew what streaming was, but not everybody, and we got over it pretty quickly.
And let me just also state the obvious that you and I are kind of, in some ways, speaking to the choir here, because everybody who's watching us already knows how to stream. You get it. You're part of the wave of the future. And Brian, so are you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being on with us and talk through all of it. Of course, that Chiefs v. Dolphins game is tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern. And I know you know where to find it, exclusively on Peacock. That does it for us for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.